America, and welcome to Invent America, because America invents.
This episode of Invent America TV is brought to you by America's Inventor Lady and Home Talk USA. Home Talk is a proud member of the King's Broadcasting Network and has been bringing to you the best of America's home-based product innovation since 1998. This segment of Invent America TV is brought to you by the law offices of R.P. Baraska. RPB law offices have been bringing corporate-level legal expertise to the independent inventor community for more than 20 years. For all your inventing legal needs, trust rpblawoffices.com.
And thank you for being with us for this episode of Invent America, because America invents. We have been solving the problems out there for the American people for centuries now, and we will continue to do so. My guest today is Randy Landreneau, and this segment is brought to you by Product Quick Start. Noah McNeely is the mastermind for doing a lot of these prototypes. I think he's actually working on 6 different inventions that are going to ASD Market Week with us. And so he's a little bit overloaded. You never know, but he is a master. And I've had a lot of inventors tell me that they think he walks on water. So go Noah. And Randy, I've known you for a long, long time now. Randy Landreneau, president of US Inventor. And Randy, give us a little bit of background yourself. How did you get wrapped up in this?
You know, it's interesting. We have known each other a long time. The bad guys just can't get rid of me. They can't get rid of me, and we're getting to a really good point now. But many years ago, I was the president of the Tampa Bay Inventors Council, which is a local nonprofit group in the Tampa Bay area. You know, there are inventor groups like that all over the country. If you should look, whoever is watching this, you should look for the inventor group in your area and hook up with them. Good information. And I found out about this bill that was being pushed called the America Invents Act. And this thing was like going hard through Congress. And I found out about it and I thought, golly, this is terrible. This is gonna destroy so much of what we have as inventors. Here's the thing. What are your rights as an inventor? The only right you really have is to use it's your patent right. The right that you have with a patent is to be able to stop a large corporation or anybody from stealing it, from selling it, from making it and selling it, from importing it, from using it. That's your right as an inventor. And that's what we've had in America pretty well for so long. And that bill was going to totally take a huge piece out of that right. So I was one of the guys that started fighting it, and I decided, okay, that's it. No one was supporting me. It was all on my own. And I started hooking up with other heads of inventor groups around the country, and we started really trying to get a lot of people calling their reps and their senators. Unfortunately, it was too little too late. We didn't have nearly the voice we needed. In fact, inventors didn't really have a voice in DC. It's one of these things as an inventor, you don't think about that. You're in your garage, you're working on your product, you're all excited. Look at it. You come up with the aha moment where you figure it out. Oh my God, this is going to be huge. And I can get it patented and this and that and do well with it and yada, yada. And you don't think about, well, what is it that patent gives you? And how can big corporations that don't want their market share to be taken away by anybody, especially you and your garage, what can they do politically with all of their money and their political influence to affect your rights as an inventor? And that's what they did. It was horrible.
It was. I mean, I remember the American Invents Act 2013. It started gaining some momentum. We start hearing about it, but the USPTO has been around since 1790. And so, and it was always the little guy. I mean, everybody back then was basically a little guy. I mean, you had your Vanderbilts and Fords and stuff like that, but, that were bullies, definitely bullies, but there were enough of the rest of us, that we at least had a chance. And then as things started moving along and things started changing, and you had some of these startups that were in the ground, and they started growing like your Facebook and Amazon and all of them, they turned into bullies themselves. And so
Yeah.
they go after any little inventor that, the inventor that is still in their garage, or they've just got a few thousand units they're starting to sell. They don't catch anybody's attention, really. They might catch some consumer, wow. But when they really start grabbing market share, somebody goes in and knocks them off and
Yeah.
then gets their
Well,
patent. Yeah, they get their patent
invalidated.
annulled. Yeah, invalidated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. But even I want to go back to what you said, 1790. Think about that, everybody listening. 1790, that's what, 240 years ago?
Yep.
It was the third ever act of Congress under George Washington. We're talking about the very beginning of our country. And what was done by George Washington in the Patent Act of 1790 was absolutely revolutionary. Unlike all these other countries, in other countries, if you knew the king, you could get an exclusive right to maybe run a port or something, and that exclusive right was called a patent.
Yeah.
How about that?
I mean, they've been
Because your
doing patents since about the 1400s.
Yeah. And so, if you were the elite, if you were the rich and powerful, friends with the powerful people, whatever, you could kind of be an inventor, whatever. But nobody had a system where whoever you were, any walk of life, you were encouraged to actually come up with something new so you could own it yourself, even if you had no land, if you had no power, if you had no money, and even if you were a woman. Now, I say this, realize women didn't have a lot of rights in 1790, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Patent Act of 1790 described inventors as he, she, or they. So in other words, back then they just meant more than one person, not like now. But
Yes.
right, they weren't that. But women had all the rights of men when it came to patents and copyright. This was radical. And by the way, obviously slavery was a terrible, terrible thing in this country. But the first Black owner of a patent was 1821, well before the Civil War.
Yeah.
It was a free man living in New York. He was a tailor. His name was Thomas Jennings. He invented the first version of dry cleaning, and
Cool.
he did extremely well with it. And he used his wealth from his invention to number one, to help the abolitionist movement, but also to help get relatives out of slavery. So the system was built for the little guy. Exactly what you said, Rita. It was built for the little guy to have an incentive to do something, to come up with something that no one's thought of, and then to fight off the big guys if someone tries to steal it. In other words, that's part of your incentive. They can't just steal it from you. And of course, interestingly, from maybe over 100 years ago, if you look at the research, there were big corporations working politically to weaken the patent system over 100 years ago. In fact, if you look at media in the time of the Wright brothers, there were big corporations saying things like to the media, this was actually printed. Why should we have to pay those guys, the Wright brothers, anything? They're just bicycle mechanics. What?
Yeah.
So there was absolutely a huge incentive to lower the rights of the inventors who invented and owned the patents. Interestingly, our politicians, our lawmakers, did pretty well holding the line and not doing anything radical. But around 2011 is when it was kind of a perfect storm of everything. Number one, you had big tech, and of course, big tech has their tentacles so far and so wide with all the media and the internet, and they can put a message out that everyone picks up, and huge money, and we didn't have a voice. And even though there were people like me fighting it, man, that bill came through and just, yep.
Yeah. I mean, back then, social media was starting to take on, but it wasn't crazy like it is now, where you can put a notice out and have it go viral overnight.
Yeah.
Back then, people still weren't there. So nobody really knew what was happening to the patent rights. And for most people, it's like, I'm never going to come up with a patent. But for those folks who did, it had just a horrible impact. We're going to talk about that when we come back. So everybody out there, if you are an inventor, an inventor, there are things happening, all right, that are positive right now. And
Yes.
so Randy's going to talk about that when we come back. And if you've got an inventor out there who's got some questions, needs some help, have them call me. Get in touch. We do the Inventors Roundtable twice a month, and it is free. We are also getting ready to take 30 inventors to ASD Market Week. So just getting started, inventory. You know what? Last year, everybody who went with us sold all of their inventory they had in stock. It was amazing. And we are there to help and promote and get everybody out there. So we're going to go pay some bills. Stick with us. We're going to be right back with Randy Landreneau, and we're going to find out more about what is going on at the USPTO that is positive for a change after all of these years. We would really like to hear some positive news, Randy. Otherwise, I'd have to cut you off. So stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back.
This segment of Invent America TV is brought to you by SearchQuest Patent Search. SearchQuest provides for a comprehensive patent search that searches the entire world and not just the U.S. Patent Office. Make sure that before you spend those big bucks having a patent written, you've done your due diligence by getting a comprehensive patent search. Use SearchQuestPatents.com for all your patent search needs. They scour the world for you.
And thank you for being with us for this segment of Invent America. We are part of the Home Talk USA family, and we are very proud to be connected to Michael King and King Productions. So my guest for this segment is Randy Landreneau, and he has been fighting the fight for the American inventor for, 15 years now?
About, yeah.
Yeah. So, as we've gone through then, and you watched in horror as some of these really cool products were just, the patents were just invalidated.
Yeah. So just so your viewers know, what that bill, the American Invents Act, did prior to that bill, if you had to face off against a big infringer, okay, the fight would take place in a real court where you have a jury. This is your right to a jury trial. That's in the Seventh Amendment, right? Where you had a lifetime appointed judge. Man, that's important. That's a judge who's not looking for a better job. Definitely, you don't want someone who might want to go to work for your infringer, right?
Right.
But lifetime appointed judges are a key part of our system, and jury trials and due process, right? And you know what? It wasn't cheap. You might say, well, wait a minute, I could never afford that. Well, the way it was done when the system was fair is you would do it on contingency. Okay. I knew a guy about 40 years ago. He went up against a big car company. And look, who has more money than car companies, right? And he didn't have any money, but he won because they stole something from him. They said they said they weren't interested. Then they copied it. And he had an attorney who worked on contingency where they share in the winnings and you don't have to be rich to hire them. So anyway, what was created with this bill was a new administrative court where you don't have a jury, where you don't have a real judge. You have three government employees who are called administrative patent judges. You don't have due process. I mean, there is a process, but it's fast and efficient, and they said, and it'll be fair. Well, no, it's not fair at all. There's some conflicts of interest that we've uncovered that would just knock your socks off. But on top of that, over 80% of the time, the patent in question gets invalidated. Over 80% of the time.
Wow.
And you might say, well, how the heck can they do that? Well, there's one key thing about getting a patent that is kind of a weak point, and it's very subjective, and that is non-obviousness. Okay. So in other words, for a utility patent, it's got to be novel. Something about it's got to be brand new, never been done before. It's got to be useful. It has to do something. The patent has to describe it well enough. If the patent doesn't describe it so someone else can do it, you could lose your patent over that. So make sure your patents are written well. But the fourth thing is it has to be non-obvious. Now, non-obvious used to have some kind of objective measure to it, but it doesn't anymore. It's totally subjective. Would someone, a person of skill in the art, that's a posita, a person of skill in the art.
Okay.
But would a person of skill in the art have a hard time coming up with it? Wow, totally subjective. Now, when the patent office issues you your patent, they're saying yes, we consider that it meets all these characteristics, including non-obviousness. Well, the PTAB, this is this new administrative court. It's called the PTAB, the Patent Trial and Appeal Board. They can look at the exact same prior art. That's all the stuff done like your product prior to your product. They can look at all the prior art, and I'll give you an example of that in a minute. And they can say, well, we think it's obvious. And there goes your patent.
Yeah.
There goes your patent.
Well, and there was an examiner who's trained to do that it went through the steps, it went through all the process, and the examiner goes, yes, you get the patent. And then for these three judges to sit there and say, oh, no, it was obvious to us. Well, in what
Yeah.
day and age does something now that's been in the marketplace and you saw it and you go, oh yeah, well that's obvious.
Well, yeah, and not only that, they don't talk to the patent office, the patent examiner, who is the expert in your field. They don't talk to that person. And in fact, what we've found in our research is most of the time, the administrative patent judges don't have anywhere near the experience of your patent examiner. So, and as far as conflicts of interest, I mean, the worst one was where a guy named Matt Clements was an attorney representing Apple when they were accused of infringement. So he was working for Apple. He then becomes a PTAB judge for this administrative court, PTAB, becomes a PTAB judge, and 24 out of 25 cases that he's on for where Apple is PTABing, trying to invalidate a patent, they succeed, of course.
Of
And
course.
then, not too long after that, one of my colleagues, Josh Malone, happens to be at a PTAB trial for one of our members. He's there witnessing it, and he sees the guy that's working for Apple that's running the case is Matt Clements. So now he's back on the other side of the aisle working for Apple again. How about that for a conflict? anyway, it is horrendous. It's horrendous. But so here's the thing though. There is some good news, and I don't want you guys to be too depressed right now, because US Inventor is fighting the fight, and we're making serious progress. But even before we win the fight to get legislation passed to either get rid of the PTAB or make it so that it doesn't affect you, and we'll talk more about that. Right now at the patent office, we've got somebody there who's the director of the patent office, is doing fabulous things in our favor, and big tech is going nuts. Big tech is they are fit to be tied over what the new patent office director is doing, and it's all good for us and good for you as an inventor.
Well, I'm excited to hear about that. So when we come back, I want you to get more into that, because that's why we had you on today, because we want to know what the positive things are for the inventors, so that if you've got an idea, you can get out there and go and file that patent and put it on the fast track. You pay a little bit more for that, but oh my goodness, as long as things are going the way we need them to go for another 3 years, because who knows after that, hustle it up, Buttercup. Let's get it done, right? Stick with us, everybody. We will be right back to find out more about what is really going on. We're going to go pay some bills, thank our sponsors for being out there with us. And if you know an inventor who has got something burning to get out there, have them get in touch and we will put them on the right track. Stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back. If you're an inventor or you know an inventor out there who would just like to be able to have a conversation with other inventors, join the Inventors Roundtable. It's free. The meetings are virtual, so you can be anywhere in America and talk to another inventor. And for a lot of folks out there, understanding the process, being able to ask questions, getting good service provider information is critical to the inventing process. So, got questions? Want to join? It's free. inventorsroundtable.org. And thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Invent America, because we love to invent and we love to talk about the things that inventors need to be aware of so that they can be successful getting those new products out into your hands. So my guest is Randy Landreneau. And Randy, all right, so we talked about how bad it was. What's good now? What's shifting?
Well, here's the thing, and I want you to realize, so what went so wrong before? A bad law got passed, and of course that administrative court we're talking about that's so bad, it was to be run by the patent office, which that's kind of how they sold it to Congress too. Oh, that doesn't sound so bad, right? Well, the director of the patent office is appointed by the president, and think about the most powerful corporations on earth. Man, what think of the incentive they have to get who they want to be the director of the patent office to help them, because they don't want to have to deal with inventors so much. So the bill gets passed, and the person and the director of the patent office is going to set it up, going to hire the judges, going to make the rules. The person who got appointed as director at that time to do that was Michelle Lee, former head of patent strategy at Google. How about that?
There you go.
Talk about. Yeah, it's like totally, and it's worse than you can imagine. And of course, she turned it into what one chief judge referred to as the killing field for patent rights. Now, what we have now, though, is a unique situation. Any president except for our current president is going to have to borrow a ton of money to run to become president. And the problem there is, where's that money come from? And very often, a lot of it comes from big tech because they're out there helping people get elected. President Trump, on the other hand, didn't take big tech's money, and as we all know, big tech didn't really help him. so,
Yeah.
and of course, President Trump has a different viewpoint about a lot of things. And of course, when it comes to what we're doing, President Trump has appointed, first of all, he appointed the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick has a bunch of patents himself in his own name. This is big. Now, directly underneath the Secretary of Commerce, Lutnick is the Undersecretary of Commerce, who is the director of the Patent Office, John Squires. John Squires, is Trump's appointee as director of the Patent Office, is doing fabulous things. Before he even got there, Trump's appointed acting director, Coke Stewart, put in a new system of discretionary denial of PTAB applications. That's where people are trying to, you're trying to sue someone for infringement. They try to get your PTAB into your patent into the PTAB, the administrative court, so they can invalidate it. And suddenly, here she was discretionarily denying these efforts to take patents to the PTAB in a big, big way. We're talking about hundreds of patents not being taken to the PTAB that would have gone to the PTAB previously. And then John Squires gets appointed as director, and he's done that even more so. Bottom line is, it used to be that about 70% of the time that a corporation wanted to take your patent to that terrible patent-killing administrative court, about 70% of the time, they would succeed at getting you there. And once there, over 80% of the time, you would lose your patent. Now, it's down to somewhere between 10 to maybe as high as 20%, but maybe as low as 10% of the time now. So bottom line is, they're looking very carefully at these patents. And I think what it really boils down to is they're only letting patents go to that administrative court if they have some serious flaw, if in fact a mistake was actually made, in which case, okay, if a mistake was made, a mistake was made. It would probably come out in litigation or in a re-exam or whatever. Now, the problem here, and of course, so right now, things are quite good. In other words, if you've been holding back, there are a lot of people who they're being infringed. They've been holding back because they didn't want to try to sue the infringer because they didn't want to face this administrative court, the PTAB. Now they're saying, and again, it's not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. Talk to your attorney. But if it were me, I would be going for it now. Number one, if I needed to litigate, I would go for it. If I needed to get something patented, I would go for it. I'd fast track it, because now is the time to run fast. Now, what happens after Trump's administration? Because we're going to have a new president, and that new president is going to appoint someone new, typically as the director of the Patent Office. Here's the thing. Unfortunately, I would like to say that there is a candidate behind Trump that's supportive of everything Trump's doing, that would follow him on this issue. And I don't know that that's the case.
Yeah.
Without getting into any details, honestly, I really think we are looking at the strong possibility of whoever the next president is appointing somebody who takes us back to what we had before, which is why US Inventor is here fighting to get good laws passed. And we're doing quite well on that effort to get laws passed that will fix this part of the system, so we don't have to depend on having some unique president in place who cares about us.
Yeah. Well,
it's crazy. Think about this. What your patent rights depend on who's president? Come on.
Yeah, I know, that's pretty sick. And you went through those kind of that transition of the little inventor, all right, has been saving lives for hundreds of years because they come up with something new. I mean, it used to be that, when you were on the ship coming over, if you didn't have somebody that could fix it, all right, and come up with a new gadget, everybody died because the ship sank, or the wagon trains going across the country. And so, the American inventor, the independent guy who fixed something, a lot of the best products we see, they come from a rancher who's out there and they're fixing something, a roofer who comes out there. We've got some going to ASD Market Week. A woman, she got carpal tunnel doing hair design, and she came up with a better tool. It's the independent inventor who fixed a problem they experience right there in front of them that makes the difference. It saves lives.
I've got a couple of great examples. A guy named David Furry in Texas, and he was somehow working in Texas. There's this problem, and anywhere where they do a lot of oil refinery, oil refining, you got derricks, you got pipelines, and all of these different things can have pinhole leaks where they're leaking toxic gas like ethylene. Okay, this cancer-causing gas, and we're talking about an invisible leak. You can't even see it or smell it typically. How do you find those? Well, the technology involved in finding these leaks was very limited, didn't work very well. And a guy named David Furry, he was actually working in that industry, and he came up with this solution. And he basically invented a camera. You point this camera at that leak, and when you see a black plume of smoke, that invisible leak now suddenly is visible. You could take that camera and fly a helicopter along a pipeline and spot the leaks and fix them. It was the Texas EPA gave him their highest award and said in writing that his invention lowered the level of ethylene in the air in Houston by 60%. Okay. Wow. Is that what you want? And who would have thought of this? Maybe one day somebody would have thought of it. How many people would have died by then? This is the kind of thing you absolutely want. And of course, a big company, was going to license it from him. They got all the information, and then they copied it, and they used this administrative court to invalidate his patent. So now they've made hundreds of millions of dollars off of it. They've now sold themselves to another company, and I'm sure the profits from this were a big part of their overall gain. And of course, David got nothing, right?
Yeah.
I have other examples. I know we only have a minute before the break, but there are many examples, and it's horrendous. In fact, any of you guys out there, usinventor.org is our website. And if you want to email me directly, randy@usinventor.org, be happy to give you more information. But
and I know there's a lot on your website.
Yep.
And so, learning more about what to be prepared for when you're taking a new product to market. And, I get inventors that call me all the time. I've got an idea. And we are more than happy to start, here's where you start. Here's where you get to, and being able to teach the inventors how to protect themselves is critical so that they know what to expect, so they know, what to watch for. And when we come back, I want you to give them some of those fine-tuned pieces. It's like, don't not file a patent. All right. You still got to have something to work with. Yeah. And so that's the best we've got. But we're going to take a break, go and pay some bills, thank our sponsors for being with us. And we will be right back to talk and wrap up this really important segment on how America deals with the USPTO. Come back, everybody. For this segment of Invent America, because America invents. And we are grateful to King Broadcasting Systems for including us and allowing us to bring this information to you. This segment is brought to you by WeNeedGutters.com. Wooden Wood is your gutter professional. And if you've got some place where your water is flowing over your gutter system, WeNeedGutters.com is where you go for the fix. My guest for this segment, and we're wrapping up this educational piece with a couple of important points for the American inventor, Randy Landreneau with US Inventor, has been fighting the fight for about 15 years and helping inventors understand the protocols, what to expect, and, get the dukes up.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and in a minute, we're going to talk about. We've talked about how things have changed at the patent office, and we're in a better shape than we've ever been, or than we've been in many, many years, as far as being able to actually have your day in court if you need it, as opposed to being dragged into that terrible administrative court where patents get invalidated right and left. So that's good. But I got to tell you something. One thing I found and that I've learned, the inventors I know, the few inventors I know who've won big lawsuits. Now, by the way, this only matters if you've invented something really, really, really hot. Okay. But if it's really hot, there's probably a big corporation somewhere that wants to steal it. And then you end up in this big fight. What I found is those who have won in this current environment where it's broken, they have had continuations. Now, what that means is, and by the way, I'm not an attorney, not legal advice, but talk to your attorney about this. When you file a patent, before it issues, you can file for a continuation. You're using the same specification, the same diagrams, but the only thing you're changing is the claims. You're adding new claims. Now, it could be that you didn't claim something you should have. Could be things have changed and you realize, oh, my patent actually covers this, but I didn't claim it. Or it could be that you want to claim something that your patent covers that your infringer's doing that maybe your previous claims don't cover well enough. Bottom line is you can end up with, say, 4 or 5 patents instead of 1, and suddenly you're harder to take out, harder to invalidate, and you're a tougher target for these big guys, okay? So that's the thing you should talk to your attorneys about. But let me say this. usinventor.org, this is our website. We are the group that's fighting for, in fact, we're the only group in the whole country fighting on this issue and dedicated entirely, exclusively for inventors and for startups, okay? In Washington, D.C., there are other groups that claim to be working for inventors, but they're run by big corporations. And they have different incentives, and they don't face the same battles we face. In fact, usually these big corporations, even if they have a lot of patents and they care about their patents, they still use the broken system to invalidate others. In fact, there's one in particular that's probably the biggest lobbyist, among the pro-patent establishment. That's what I call it. It's kind of like pharma and some other big corporations like Qualcomm. Okay. Qualcomm has used the PTAB over 70 times. That's the administrative court.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, any corporation, once it gets to a certain size, they stop being the innovator in the garage that really needs that protection, and they become the big guy who's trying to shut down those guys. It's just natural. It's what happens in life. And bottom line is, America, what made America great, it was all this innovation that we've now lost because we've hamstrung our inventors. So that's why we're fighting to not look. We can't sit on what the current patent office is doing. It's great, but it's not going to last unless we have another Trump somewhere. Which even if we did, who knows if we'd actually be able to talk to him.
Yeah.
What we need is good law.
Yeah.
What we need is good law. And there are 2 bills. By the way, there are bills that are being pushed by the pro-patent establishment that they're going to claim will fix everything. And if one of these bills passes, it will likely take another decade, if ever, to get a good bill passed. Okay. One of them is called the Prevail Act. And I don't know what all those letters, they stand for something. Prevail is, I don't know what those letters stand for.
Don't know what the alphabet stands for. Yeah.
Yeah. Prevail deals with the PTAB, this administrative court, and it claims to fix it. The problem is, as an inventor, like for instance, one of the things is you can't end up with multiple PTAB attacks from one entity on your patent. Okay, that's good. However, the inventors I know who got destroyed, it didn't take multiple attacks. It took one attack.
Yeah.
So you're still going to face. In fact, what we have found, us and our attorneys and key people we communicate with, a bill like Prevail, while it may look good and the way they're going to present it with their high-paid lobbyists, it's going to look great to most people who don't know. We've determined that it would not have helped the inventors we know within our group that got destroyed by that terrible PTAB. Now, so one's called Prevail, one's called PIRA, one's called Restore. I don't want to get into all the details because we don't have time. But the bottom line is those bills will be lobbied like crazy, and there'll be lobbyists paying a ton of money to get them passed. There are 2 bills that actually we need to get all behind and we need to pass them. One is called the Balancing Incentives Act. Marcy Kaptur and Thomas Massie. Marcy Kaptur's Democrat, Thomas Massie, Republican. Key bill, the Balancing Incentives Act basically says that if you're the inventor, if you're the patent holder, you have to consent to being taken to that administrative court. Boom. That fixes it right there. You end up, so you can decide whether you want to be dragged into there or you want to go to a real court. So Balancing Incentives Act, very, very specific bill, very short bill, will fix that problem for us. Now, there's another bill called RALIA, Restoring America's Leadership in Innovation Act. Thomas Massie's the lead and Marcy Kaptur is the co-lead. So the same 2 Congress people. And RALIA actually fixes everything. It actually fixes everything. There are other problems, not just the PTAB. It gets rid of it. It's a heavier lift because it does so much. But it would be the ultimate solution for all of us for a long, long time. But either of those bills, we're fighting hard to. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I want to make sure that we have the right information. All right. And I am assuming that you will send me some of that information, and we will be able to post it and get that out there for everyone so that every American who is looking to invent something at least has a fighting chance. So stick with us, everybody.
By the way, one real quick thing, guys. Go to our site and sign our inventor rights resolution at usinventor.org. You'll be part of the effort, and we'll connect you.
All right. Be with us next week. We will have another episode of Invent America.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We will be back next week with more stories on getting products from mind to market. We will have new inventors and industry experts. So join us and have a wonderful week.